Hey, Deserving listeners, Darcy and Stacey. Let's watch and see what happens.
The type of woman I am.
Darcy's told to me, like, basically tell me successful guy have money, basically. Money no make you good guy, money no make you have good heart. The most people have money, it's like, it's not really like good heart.
Yeah. Agreed. Florian, one of the most agreeable, to me, things he's ever said.
But the fact that Georgie's here, it's uncomfortable for me. I don't want to see him in person. And I feel like that's what you guys are wanting from me. I honestly feel like Georgie's trying to manipulate you to get to me.
Okay, so Darcy believes that Georgie is trying to manipulate everyone so that Georgie can weasel his way back into Darcy's life. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. The other possibility is that Georgie isn't interested in being with Darcy. There's also a possibility that he does want to be with Darcy and will welcome an opportunity to interact with her and win her back or something. So do we call that manipulation, or do we just call that romantic? If Darcy just said, look, Florian, I get that you want to bring him, and I commend you that you want to bring your friend, and I'm really, really sorry, and I don't want to make this all about me. This is your day. You're the one getting married, but I have to tell you, like, it's really going to make it hard for me to cope. You know, say what you will about our relationship, but he's an ex-partner of mine, and it's just going to really make it hard for me. And you can invite him, and I'll deal with it if that's what you want me to do. But if there's another way around this, I sure would appreciate it. Something like that. I'm guessing Florian might be more likely to hear that and accommodate that than the way that she's coming across.
No, she's not using me. For what reason using me? I think I'd be like stupid, like
Right. So he's getting defensive about that. So you think I'm stupid, and you think that he's using me, because that's kind of what she's saying. And she's not saying this directly, but you could imagine him perceiving this as, so you're telling me that all my interactions with Georgie are fake, and that he doesn't actually like me, and I don't actually like him, that this whole thing is just because this is his Machiavellian plan to get back with you? Like, that discounts my experience, it discounts my intelligence, and so, yeah, he's going to get defensive. Now, is Georgie manipulating him? That's possible. But if you're trying to convince someone to take care of you and to be nice, saying what she said is not the best strategy.
I'm going to fall for him.
No, I mean, well, that's what manipulation is.
I can know people going to manipulation me.
You don't think he's gonna do that?
No. Darcy think Georgie going to manipulate me. Come on, please. Like, for me, like, it's not manipulation. I'm doing this for my heart. I want people to be happy.
Right. There's that tactic that he has as well, that hope. I think he has struggled and said as much with the amount of animosity between various different people, and I think a part of him is motivated, and he's saying this, that he just wants everyone to get along, and so he's thinking, here's an opportunity for Georgie and for Darcy and Stacey to make up or be friends. You know, if I can sort of force them into a room, maybe they'll make up in this way. And yeah, I don't know if I recommend people do that without people's consent, especially the way that Darcy is and Stacey, so I can't imagine that it's a good, wise strategy, but that is his strategy. I think it's an ongoing resentment from his point of view that there is a lot of assumption and negativity going on about a lot of different things, and so I think he's using this as an example or an opportunity to try to change the system, to try to make people be different. And the irony is that by doing this, it could make matters worse. I mean, it could make matters better, but I doubt it.
I want people together. Georgie probably is bad guy in the past, but no more. I understand, like, people can change. You know, I have the best intention for you, and like, you know that, like, my family can come to the visa and and like, I don't have nobody basically.
Okay, so he's doing a good job that she could learn from. Instead of insulting people or assuming the worst, he's speaking from his vulnerability. He's saying, I'm really sad that my family can't come because of the visa, and I don't have any other friends, and I just want someone in my corner, and he's the only, or seemingly his only friend. That Florian, after all these years, I mean, it's been at least a few years, maybe 4 years, because, you know, they experienced the pandemic after he came to the States. So At least at the time of this filming, I guess it could be as little as 3 years or something. But he doesn't have any friends, which I don't know what that says. I could imagine that Florian, one, it's hard when you're from another culture and English is your second language, and there's a lot of racism and assumptions, and I don't know what. But he also seems a little inward oriented. So, okay, so this seems to be working on Darcy a little bit. Now, Darcy could still say, I totally get that, and I'm sorry about this, but I'm telling you, if there's another way around this, I sure would appreciate it.
Understand, you don't have family, you're alone, you feel like feel alone, to be honest. It's not easy.
And a common pattern for everyone on the show, including Florian, is to not be vulnerable. So this suggests that he has developed trust with Darcy enough to be, or he's just turned a new leaf. But, you know, he could have done a lot of other things. You could think about this in your own life. He could have denied his own vulnerability and his need and his loneliness, or at the very least not expressed it because of fears of being rejected or just fears of being vulnerable, fears of being called not a real man, right? Because real men are unemotional and toxic masculinity. But for him, he didn't give in to any of that, but he could have said something like, I'm not manipulatable. What's wrong with you? You're always insulting me. And plus, you take things too seriously. Like, you and Georgie should be able to get along. Like, you're too dramatic. Like, he said things like that before, at least in that vein. He could have done it again, but he didn't. He was being insulted. He was not getting vulnerability from her, but he countered that with healthy vulnerability.
And the close things I have you guys, but like second close, I have Georgie and I want Georgie to be honest.
I don't know, Florian. This just feels like it's not a good idea.
There's like...
Yeah, okay. So you can see that she's on the fence a little bit. I just wish that she would be vulnerable. Just be like, this is going to be hard for me, instead of beating around the bush or denying it or using these kind of tangential statements.
It was said, so I'm doing good, you know?
I tell you, Georgie, change.
That's good for you. I'm happy for you. You know, it would have been nice to see a little bit of that initiative when I was with you.
I'm sure y'all remember this. In terms of the way the TV show depicted it, was that he did have a business, and she requested, and I think he went along with, moving in with her, especially during the pandemic, which took him away from his business and his clientele and his network of word of mouth. And then the pandemic hit, which eliminated a lot of that, right? And it took a while for him to build his massage business back up again. So for her to say that he had no ambition, now maybe he didn't. Maybe there were lots of opportunities for him to pursue his own career, and he was indeed relying on her money as a way of avoiding his own responsibility or something. I don't know.
I feel like Georgie's like bragging, kind of showing off, like throwing in my face, like, oh, now he's got a job.
Oh, God. She sat down, and I didn't want to comment on it because, I don't know, it's just, but now we've seen multiple lines of evidence that not only is she uncomfortable, which is fine, she's uncomfortable, but she's like prejudgmental. Now, maybe behind the scenes, he was abusive in the way that I think she was accusing. We never heard any data to back that up. The data that they did bring up were data points that made no sense given the reactivity towards him among Darcy and all the family. So you got to figure that if there was more there would have been some data point that we could relate to. And even if there were things that were beyond a certain threshold that Darcy would say, well, I don't want to talk about that on the TV show. You would think there would be, if he was as universally toxic and abusive as the accusations were, you'd think there would be low-grade behaviors that would show up on the show or would be disclosable by Darcy. And we didn't hear that. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just means it's hard to be convinced. And given the track record that we've seen with Darcy on the show, you know, it's not hard to imagine a situation where she was distorted or something. So anyway, she is sitting down with a real kind of look on her face of just disdain and given what we've seen on the show, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be that way. It's okay to be uncomfortable. And then she literally asks him, how is he doing? And he says that he's doing well and that his job is back on track. And you would think that Darcy would be like, oh, good for you. I'm glad for you as another human being or someone that I used to be in a relationship with, you know, especially since that was arguably the main criticism against him. I mean, I suspect that even if he did work on his, you know, the other factor, we don't know, that would have prevented him from working on his career was that for Darcy, I think she wanted him to be available often, right? And didn't want him to be away. So, you know, there's that. Anyway, point is that she's seeing things through this negative light, which, I don't know, this just points to a lot of emotional turmoil and potentially a tremendous lack of self-awareness and the ability to differentiate and see your way through the situation. You know, because you can imagine yourself being like, I have disdain for him and anger, and I want to lash out at him, and it seems like he's shoving this in my face, but wait, am I interpreting that correctly? Because he's just talking about his career, so it's not a big deal. He's not purposely, what am I thinking? So maybe I should just differentiate from my initial reaction there.
I feel like Georgie's like bragging, kind of showing off, like throwing in my face, like, oh, now he's got a job, doing multiple different things, all the things that he was talking about but never really took action on the 2 years that we were together. So I don't want to hear it. I'm over it.
So they were together for 2 years, and the first year was before the pandemic, and the second year was during the pandemic. The fact that he wasn't able to get his business up and running in a new town during the pandemic, you know, it was a while ago, but it's not hard to remember how even after things were opening up and the laws were such that you could open up a massage business, a lot of people were still like, I don't know if I want to take that risk. I don't know if I want to chance it, right?
Why are you telling him my business? What are you telling him the for, Florian?
Every time asking me, like, hey, what's going on with Darcy? What's going on with Darcy? What's going on with Darcy?
So say
1
nothing.
million times I feel for him sad and say it to move on.
It's no foreign foul. Like, who is this guy? What is this about?
It's none of your business.
Okay, well, now Georgie's crossing the line. It is literally none of his business. So, yeah. So now, is Georgie... Because up until now, at least what was shown on the show, it just seemed like he still longed to have Darcy back. It seemed like there was a theme of that. I think he even legitimately said that, right? But we didn't necessarily see any problematic behavior. And now it is starting to look like maybe Georgie is there to somehow, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand anyone on the show.
Darcy, relax. It's going to be fine.
So I bring a little bit gift because I know you like diamonds. So wanna
Just say, you know what? I don't want to talk about that. No offense. And you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. It's not really appropriate. So, you know, let's just be cordial because we're trying to be here for these two, and let's just talk about other things. Thanks, but no thanks. I think Darcy's going to do... So here's my legit worry, is that Darcy will perceive this as some... I don't know, she'll start to see him as an option, and then they'll get back into it. And although I think it's possible that Georgie is potentially a good match for her, or a good partner to have in life, I don't know. I can't imagine what is in his heart. But what I worry is that he'll be sucked back in, or she'll be sucked back in, and then we have to watch them self-destruct. I mean, I guess I'm just sort of curious as to what will happen with Darcy and this new guy, because at least it's a new guy, and it's like maybe there is some behavioral dynamic that will work out for her. I don't know. I can't imagine, but who knows? So that's what I'm worried about. But I guess as a distant second, I'm worried that she's going to explode right now, and then that'll make it even more wearisome to watch the wedding.
give it this for you. You deserve it.
So I think this serves two purposes for Georgie. One, I think he's trying to get Darcy back, and is trying to win her over. And two, I think he's trying to demonstrate that he has money now and can afford to spend his own money on her. So I think that's his purpose. Again, all you got to do with Darcy is be like, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to do that right now. We'll see what Darcy does here.
It's a little too late, so I appreciate the offer and the gift, but I can't accept it.
Okay, on the scale of things, that was good.
I care about you. I miss you. To hear about from foreign that you're dating someone else is hurting me, you know?
Yikes. I guess I didn't think that Georgie would do this, but yikes. Two main hypotheses we could put forth. We don't know, but one is that he legit longs for her and can't help himself. If you long for someone and you desperately want them back, which I'm guessing you've been in that position before at some point in your life. If you haven't, I mean, God bless you and your luck. Or two, you're just not interested in those kind of relationships. Or three, you're in denial of it or something. I don't know, but everyone's been there at some point in the ups and downs of relationships throughout one's life. But anyway, so the hypothesis is that he longs for her and can't help himself and is just like, please come back to me. And it's a phase of a relationship breakup that you just have to endure sometimes. If he's being abusive or annoying, then not okay. But if you're in Darcy's position, you just say, okay, well, apparently he still wants to get back together with me, but I'll be compassionate and say, hey, you know, I get it that you want to be with me, but it's never going to happen. And I'm sorry. And if this is too stressful for you, then maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding. But I was hoping that we could be cordial and everything could be, you know, you just be differentiated and mature and approach it that way and caring, you know, because he is hurt and wants her back. That should be at the very least flattering to her. It's just like, wow, he really is into me and I feel bad. The other option is that in addition to this or in lieu of this, he is legit trying to bulldoze and manipulate, and this whole thing was some big grand attempt to dominate, or I don't know, to sort of convince without people wanting you to even try to convince. I don't know. What do you think?
But I care about you. I miss you. To hear about from foreign that you're dating someone else is hurting me, you know? It's hard.
And it's fine that he's hurt. And if he just wants to say, hey, I don't want to pressure you, but I'm just telling you, get it off my chest, hearing about you dating other people, which is, of course, you're right. I'm glad you're dating other people intellectually, but it does hurt because I miss you. Okay. But it kind of sounds like he's criticizing her for dating other people.
Hard to control myself because I tell him I'm not going to flirt with you tonight. I'm not going to give you no gifts, but I cannot behave myself because you're sitting here in front of me, beautiful, shining. So it's hard for me. What I need to do?
No, you're taking advantage. You're manipulating.
No, I don't want.
Yeah, this manipulation tactic. Maybe that's an option. Even if he was manipulated, just instead of getting into an argument about manipulation, because of course the two of them aren't going to see it that way, you just say, I appreciate it, but no. And I'm sorry that I broke up with you. A lot of breaking up with someone in an ethical way is being a broken record. You'll find yourself saying the same thing over and over and over again, or the same set of things. And it can feel frustrating, and it can feel like, haven't we already been over this? It's a similar thing to when you cheat on someone and you're still in the relationship, or even after, if you break up and the person wants to heal from it and wants to talk about it, the victim, and they come to you and they're just like, why did you do that? Especially in recovery of relationships that want to stay together after infidelity. There will be potentially thousands of repetitive things that are said to the cheater. I can't believe you did that. Why did you do it again? And in those scenarios, case-by-case basis, commonly it is the balanced and healthy and right thing to do to you respond to the question. And that might mean that you have exhausted all of your answers to that question and you end up repeating yourself. So she could just tell him, as I told you before, I'm not going to get with you again. It's over. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. And I get it that you can't control yourself, but I'm not going to I don't want to be around this anymore if you're not quote unquote going to, it's actually, I think, in your best interest, maybe if you're not around me, if you can't control yourself, because it's over. So, you just, and then if he's like, but da 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 da, you just keep saying this. There's this, I think, bias or myth or misunderstanding that when you're in Darcy's shoes for that I've already said it to the person. So if they're not responding, I got to say it a different way. This applies to parenting. When a child, you're at the store and they want you to buy something and you're just like, I can't afford that, or I don't want to buy that toy. You have enough toys at home. And you say, I'm sorry, but we're not going to buy that today because that's not why we're here. And also, I have to be on a budget for everyone's sake. I need to pay all of our bills. I don't want to bother you with it, but we don't have endless, money to spend on everything. So that's another concern. And also, you have a lot of toys at home, so we're not buying it. And then the kid, a couple of minutes later, like, I don't understand why you won't buy me the toy. You don't have to come up with a brand new explanation because there might not be one. You just say the same thing. It's a broken record. If you've ever parented kids before, you've probably been down that road before, and you just calmly restate it. Now, maybe you have to escalate a little bit and say, we've already been over this, so I'll explain it to you one more time. But if you ask me again, I'm not going to respond. So really listen to this. It's not going to happen because da da da. So, maybe you have some sort of escalation there, but you don't make up new things, and you certainly don't just flip out, because the person, the child, the former partner, they're going through something. And as long as they're not being abusive, then you just keep saying, and you just give them, you can't control Georgie, but you can give him an opportunity to let it really sink in. And people in Georgie's shoes, typically they're in denial about, they haven't accepted that the relationship is over. Now, it's possible that Georgie has reasons to believe that the door is still open. I wouldn't doubt that Darcy has not been definitive in stating as much, but she might have. It's not unusual for people that long for a relationship back to go into denial about it. So you just have to continue to give them the opportunity to accept that it's over, and you just have to continue to say the same thing. And if you flip out, one, it's distressing to you because you're becoming undifferentiated and you're letting it get to you. And two, you might even set yourself up to do something you didn't want to do in the first place. Like, fine, we'll get back together. I don't know. Now, if Georgie takes it too far and he's in the direction of stalking Darcy, which I have to say, like, there's a risk of that given the way that he's approaching this, then yeah, you don't have to interact with the stalker or the bulldozer or the person who's just not listening to you regarding your boundaries. And in that instance, then you can certainly start to draw, and probably should. It depends. There's a lot of different strategies of dealing with stalkers, some of which might not even work because the way that our society is and the way our laws are, stalkers can sometimes just completely get away with it, which is horrendous and immoral of our society, and I think misogynistic, because women are often the targets of these abusive patterns. And thus the power structure, the sexist, male-centered power structure just doesn't notice or care or empathize or something. So, I mean, literally you will find politicians or police officers that will just say, like, well, he just really loves you, and maybe you shouldn't have broken up with him. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I was reading something that Karen Carpenter of the Carpenters, if you're familiar, she was being stalked by someone in a very criminal, scary way, because she was a famous singer. And she called the cops, and she was trying to advocate for herself. And then one time the stalker, again, according to this article, I don't know if it was true, the stalker showed up at her, I can certainly see it being true. So, this is in the 70s. The stalker showed up at her house. She called the cops showed up, and the cops told her, according to her, I think, that she should just go over there and talk to him because, look, he's just a fan and he's in love with you. Why can't you just be nice to him? So that sort of thing is real, and it needs to stop, and we need to be activists against that, and we need to raise awareness about stalking of all genders, from all genders, but because that does happen. Anyway, so if he's in that direction, then yeah, there's a boundary that you should actually establish sometimes where you just completely cut off and just be like, you're done. Because sometimes stalkers will look for any way to interact, and sometimes that means terrifying you or pressuring you or invading your space just so that you will interact with them. And if you do everything you can so that they just can't interact, then sometimes the stalker will give up and go away, depending, of course, hopefully. Okay, well, let's adjourn there. Everyone, please take care of yourself in the meantime until the next time that I'm watching. But really, just all the time, take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.